Welcome to episode 3 of the Steam Library Completion Challenge. If you're new to this series, I made an episode on 1996's Metal Slug as the intro, so please check it out if you're interested. There's also a playlist with the episodes located in the card in the corner and in the description below. For those unaware, I am attempting to play through my entire library of 15,000 games over on Steam. This is going to take a while, but one at a time I will get through these and make videos on them, or at least cover some of the highlights. I don't quite know the exact format I will stick to, so please bear with me. Okay, now on to today's episode, Void Bastards. Developed by Blue Manchu and published by Humble Games, Void Bastards was released onto Steam in 2019. Void Bastards is a single-player first-person shooter with a twist of strategy and planning. The game allows you to make all the decisions, what gear to bring, where to fight, and when to run. There's also a roguelike element to it, as each time you die, you come back as someone else with new abilities. You can be someone who receives money each time they get hurt, a short dude with the funny name, a hungry man, or a quiet smoker. As a slight departure from arcade-based games such as Crazy Taxi and Metal Slug, Void Bastards actually contains a story to guide the player along. The game opens up within a comic panel where two people wonder where the Void Ark is. It cuts across the galaxy to a huge station with a small transport entering the Void Ark, which is a transport vessel for clients, which are essentially prisoners who are serving their various sentences, and these dehydration bags, only to be brought out of the bag to assist the Void Ark's return to base. The computer system, aka Steve, greets each client and serves as their instructor, making sure they are completing the necessary tasks for their return to base. However, once rehydrated, it is discovered that the client selected does not have a citizen card, which is a huge no-no. So the start of the game is registering the client by getting a few necessary items from nearby vessels. On these vessels, there awaits an array of corrupted souls from a time forgotten. These souls are upset by your arrival and will in fact try to kill the client. Alongside these souls/citizens, as they're called, are other automated machines that will also try to stop you. Within each of the vessels, there lie many main areas. Some of these include the Helm, the Dine, Hab, Suite, Garb, Atmo, and Gen. Most of these areas provide resources to the clients in the forms of ammo, fuel, food, and scrap parts that are used for crafting. And some of these specific areas offer other things such as extra health packs, a more detailed map of the vessel, cleansers, and even new abilities. Once a ship has been looted to the client's desire, they are free to leave via one of the loading docks where the Steve awaits them. After leaving a vessel, the client is sent back to the ship. Here, they can build new items through the workbench. Most items built are equipment for direct use, such as weapons or explosives, but there are also a variety of upgrades to health and resistances to various traps. And that is the main game cycle: board a vessel, kill and loot, escape and build, and repeat. Obviously there is a little bit more to it, as there's several enemy types and weapon combos, but that is the simplified version of the game progression. Anyways, after looting several vessels and crafting the required items, the citizen card can be built. In excitement, the client rushes back to the Void Ark and tries to use the newly made ID card.
Oh dear, it looks like you've tried to use an unregistered citizen card. Did you forget to register your citizen card with HR? I'm sorry. Do you want to use the HR computer? Because that would require the HR computer to have not been stolen.
Now, back to the grind. Time to build ourselves a new HR computer.
Don't neglect your work-life balance.
20 minutes later.
After gaining the necessary components, now it's time to rebuild the computer.
Registering unregistered citizen card. Time to registration, 6 months. Press turbo button to accelerate processing. System overheat. Prepare for plasma mounting.
Did you know use of turbo mode requires a water cooling system?
Oh, of course. The water cooling system. Duh, I knew I was forgetting something.
Later that same evening.
Sweet, now we have all the parts for the water cooling system. Now to install it.
Turbo processing reinitiated. System update required. required. Press any key if you do not wish to not interrupt the system update. Error. Interplanetary receiver required. Press any key when receiver connected.
I'm afraid your attempt to connect the interplanetary receiver has failed for the following reason. There is no interplanetary receiver. It looks like we need to kick around some motivational strategies.
Well, I guess that makes sense. Back at it, I suppose.
Much later.
Okay, once more, we have the necessary components. Let's get the software update started now.
Turbo processing initiated. Registering unregistered citizen card. Warning, invalid vessel coordinates.
Oh dear. It looks like HR forgot to process Circular 983, which made location-based registration null and void.
Argument rejected. This vessel is not where it should be. Solution computed. Destroy this vessel. Self-destruct sequence initiated. Time to destruct 60 seconds.
I can see that this self-destruct sequence could be distressing to some stakeholders.
Turbo processing terminated. Time to destruct. 6 months.
Please obtain ink, a CNT stamp, and a laminator.
Oh, now we need a laminator? Wait, I have one of those.
Move out the way! Move out the way! No time for that.
Citizen card registration complete.
Thank you, client, for restarting the FTL drive. Now, let's get you desiccated in preparation for FTL travel. I've noted your application to remain in hydrated form. Good news, your application has been rejected. Some clients have been prematurely released from care due to end-of-life events.
Special commendation awarded. 10 merits credited to client account. File note. Illegal client activities include forgery, murder, theft, release of plasma on WCG property and software piracy. Recommendation. Indefinite detention.
Well, that's a bit depressing, don't you think? So yeah, the story is rather short and quite linear, but that's not a bad thing. It was to the point and quite funny at times. The presentation was nice and consistent as well, in which that comic book style really did fit. There is more of a lore side of the game, which is somewhat noticeable throughout playing, but I won't really touch on that here as I'm not really sure everything fits together. But now onto the combat side of the game. As a shooter, there are lots of options in terms of firepower. There is the Regulator, Stapler, Toaster, Riveter, Nebulator, Bushwhacker, Spiker, Banger, Cluster Flak, Zapper, Kittybot, Rifter, Bouncer, and Scrambler. Between these options, I found myself relying on a few in particular, the Toaster, Kittybot, and the Riveter specifically. Out of the three, I would say the Kittybot was the most useful, as it distracts enemies from attacking you and explodes. It really does help in a pinch or when dealing with lots of enemies at a time. The Toaster, on the other hand, is a strong beam type weapon that does a lot of damage at once, but it has a charge time between shots. This is nice for one-shotting a lot of enemies with headshots and whatnot. Lastly, the Riveter shoots a lot of bullets in a short span, which is very useful in dealing with weaker enemy types. Speaking of enemies, There are also a ton of different enemy types, these being yeah, can't say I'm going to go too in-depth on those. However, I will say the most difficult to actively deal with is the Screw. These guys are walking tanks that are best avoided rather than fought head-on. They have insane attack and health, which makes them almost too difficult to deal with. Thankfully, before entering each level, there contains a list of enemies as well as what you can find inside. This list also includes stuff like types of materials that can be gained and if there's any special events that can happen within. Outside of those aspects regarding the main game, there's also DLC available. This DLC is called the Bang Tidy, which from what I can tell adds a few new ships that can be boarded as well as a new weapon. However, from the reviews of this DLC, this unbalances the game to be a lot less fun, but more difficult. Also important to add is once you get this DLC, it cannot be removed. So be careful if you are interested in buying the DLC specifically. There's also another DLC technically, as the soundtrack is included in that list. The overall game was pretty enjoyable on my first playthrough, but in recording for this second playthrough, I found it a little bit more annoying this time. There were several times where I was trying to gather part of the ship and would die unexpectedly. A lot of the game's difficulty in general comes from the various hazards that in some cases can't be avoided, these hazards being poison or electricity specifically. And I will say that is one of my only gripes with the whole experience, as being a roguelike, it is possible for impassable circumstances to occur. Thankfully though, these are few and far between. I do think that this game is worth giving a try at the very least. Steam stats. If you were to purchase this game on Steam, it would cost you $29.99. You can also get the deluxe version of this game, which includes the DLC and the soundtrack, for $39.97. Alternatively, the DLCs can be purchased separately for $4.99 a piece. Finally, this game is available within the Humble Games Roguelike bundle, which includes Wizard of Legend, Void Bastards, and One Step to Eden for a discounted price. I got this game via Humble Bundle monthly a while ago, which pretty much was around $2 or so. I haven't really talked about Humble Bundle yet, but it is an online service where you can get games for a discounted price while also donating to charity. I've been subscribed to their monthly services for several years at this point, and I highly recommend them. They are part of the reason why I have so many games to begin with. But anyways, I would probably wait to purchase this game on sale or as part of a bundle, as $30 is quite a bit for the experience. It wasn't bad by any means, just a bit lacking in the story departments, and it does get a bit repetitive overall. In terms of Steam features, there is complete controller support for the game. Despite that, I only played using keyboard and mouse. Remote play is also available, but I'm not sure how that will work in this game as it is single player. Steam Cloud for save data is also available for playing between different computers. For Steam Deck users, this game is playable, but not optimized. After my 14.5 hours of playtime between two playthroughs, I ended up completing 15 out of 24 achievements. I would have gotten more, but most achievements rely on the recompletion of the main story on various difficulties and settings. But over 50% achievement completion is still pretty good in my mind. Thank y'all for watching episode 3. The next game I could cover are going to be between these games here: Castle Miner Z, Garfield Kart, and Forward to the Sky. Feel free to vote on one in the comments below. Thank you again for watching. I hope you will stick around for the next one.